everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Level Playing Field ProCast. I am Dominic Green, your host, managing partner of ATENANTco Commercial Real Estate Services. And here on the Level Playing Field ProCast, we talk about all things commercial real estate leasing to help small, mid-sized businesses, nonprofits, startups, and more lease commercial real estate space, whether it's in retail, office, industrial, restaurant space, more intelligently and on a level playing field. So this is kind of part two of our mini series where we're talking about the elements of a commercial lease. So where we last left off, we were talking about escalations, and we're going to pick up now. We're going to start talking about operating expenses, right? So when you're getting quoted your rent, obviously, especially nowadays, in a lot of your office buildings, definitely some retail, industrial, and things like that. You're also going to get quoted for your operating expenses, right? So let's take an example. Let's say you're leasing 10,000 square feet, and you're quoted the operating expenses for the building, which for the landlord is trying to pass all their expenses to run the building onto you. It's, let's say, $10 per square foot, and that's typically what you get, $10 per square foot. So if you're renting 10,000 square feet, you can expect that your operating expenses that you're going to be charged in addition to your rent is going to be about $100,000 a year, right? So knowing that going in, what we always like to do for our clients is try to get a historical number, especially if it's an office building, or in some cases, depending on the tenant as well, where they need a little bit more predictability in their finances and financial forecasting. So we try to get a look and see how much the operating expenses fluctuated over the past 3 years, 5 years, we can get it, just to kind of give a better estimate and better understanding what to expect. Because especially what you'll notice in a lot of your office leases, for those who lease office space, if you're getting a gross lease from the landlord, in which you're just paying one particular number, you're not having the base plus the operating expenses. You just basically have the base rent, and everything's kind of included in that, making that one payment. In there's going to be language to where it's kind of like an expense stop, kind of what is known as a base year. So basically, what it means is there's a set number that the landlord is willing to cover, which would be described your base year for that year that you leased your space. And then anything over that number, you're going to be responsible for. So let's give you a good example. So let's say that in the language it says for 2019, your base year is $10 per square foot. And then the following year in 2020, because you say you signed kind of a long-term lease, maybe 3 to 5 years. But in 2020, operating expenses are projected to be $15 per square foot. So you as a tenant will be on the hook for the difference between the $10, which is your base year of last year of 2019, and the new operating expense for 2020, which would be $15. You're responsible for that $5. So a lot of people don't realize that we didn't say, well, I can just pay this one number and everything's okay. No. The landlord is always trying to minimize expenses, maximize revenue, and make a profit. And so to protect themselves from, large increases and anything that's unexpected, they'll have that language in there to make sure that not all the expenses is on them, that you'll take some of the onus of covering some of that. So that's why it's always important, especially if you're getting presented with a gross lease structure, from any of the options, but most particularly is usually an office and industrial, to make sure that you get a historical view of what operating expenses have been and kind of estimate what they could be. So to know that you need to have a little additional money set on the side each year to pay for that additional expense. So it's not something that's unexpected where you're like, oh man, now I got to pay $5 and I'm leasing 10,000 square feet. Well, that's $50,000. And if you weren't expecting it, or you're a type of business that's really tight on money, or your money fluctuates seasonally, or whatever the case may be, having that bill for $50,000 is could definitely damage your business. So if you're not looking out for that, or have somebody counseling you on that, that's why we always say, you definitely want to have somebody on your side, a tenant rep, an attorney, somebody that's that can advise you to make sure that they're looking through and coming through these details, because that's very important. But like I said, that's something definitely pay attention to. And what you'll want to do is try to look for ways to kind of limit that by putting caps and things like that. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Another element that and is always presented and everybody's always asking for is free rent, right? Now, or abated rent. So typically, you're like, hey, I'll move into this space, but I want the first few months free. Now, part of that is what you're paying. How's it structured, right? Is it truly free? Meaning that are you just getting free actual base rent, or are you also getting the free base rent plus the operating expenses? So you have them cover, let's say, 3 months worth of base rent and operating expenses. Otherwise, most times people just say, hey, I got free rent, but they're still on the hook for 3 months worth of operating expenses, right? So it can be kind of ambiguous. You definitely want to pay attention to that. And then oftentimes, what you'll see is that depending on how the market is, what kind of leverage you have, and things like that, the free rent category still technically doesn't turn out to be free. Because what you'll notice a lot of times is what they'll do from the landlord's perspective. Let's say you signed a 3-year lease. You say, hey, I want 3 months free rent, right? Well, then you would think in your mind, like, well, instead of it actually being 36 months, I'm only going to, because I got 3 months, I asked for 3 months free, I'm only going to pay 33 months. Well, a lot of times with the way they structure these deals is that the landlord wants to make sure they get their full 3 years. So what you in turn are going to get a 39-month lease, right? So you'll get 3 months, but they'll be outside the term, basically. And you're still going to pay the full 36 months. So essentially, they propose it as a compromise where, you get 3 months and they get the full 36 months. Like I said, a true free month is you have a 36-month lease and they give you 3 free months and operating expenses. So you only have basically paying 33 months. So you got to kind of make sure you're understanding that definition and the intricacies of that. And then also sometimes they'll push it to, well, instead of giving you the 3 months, what we'll do is we'll advertise that the 3 months rate over the term of your lease. So that just basically reduces your rent, but you're still paying for the full 36 months, if we're still using that as an example. But you're just paying a reduction in rent over the time period, which can amount to a few dollars depending on how much you're paying in rent and how big your space is. Thank you for tuning in to our second part of the Level Playing Field ProCast-Elements of a commercial lease. Tune in next time where we'll be talking about the last and final segment of the different elements of commercial leasing for office, industrial, and retail space. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Dominic Green at CRE, ATENANTco at ATENANTco for LinkedIn and for Facebook. You can also follow me personally on LinkedIn at Dominic Green tenant rep advisor. And also follow us on Instagram at ATENANTco. And if you need more information about our services, what we do, experience, and additional information, go to www.atenanco.com and we'll be happy to help you. Until next time, happy leasing.